that was Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics, such a great 80s song. Alright guys, many beginners have been asking me on how to read tabs and how to understand different musical symbols. So this lesson is for you. But this lesson is not only for beginners, it's also for the intermediate students, because I'll be explaining various musical symbols and notations, so you can benefit from that too. Now this tutorial will be divided into two separate videos or two sections, the beginner section and the intermediate section. In the beginner section, we'll be talking about the very basics on reading tabs, the repetition signs. Also, in this part, we'll talk about rhythms and the metronome mark. I will also explain about the various notations and symbols of the strumming right hand technique. And by the end of the first video, you should be able to play the song Sweet Dreams in tabs on the ukulele. And in the second video, which is more of the intermediate part of the tutorial, I'll teach you on how to include pull-offs, slides, and hammer-ons to this song, and it's gonna sound pretty cool. Before we begin guys, make sure to click that subscribe button, because I'll be releasing weekly tutorials on YouTube and you wouldn't like to miss on that. And now let's begin. So let's listen to the song first. 3 and 4 and... So if you're a complete beginner and it's the first time you're looking into tablature and you have no idea what the numbers are and the lines are, let me explain it in just about a minute. So on the ukulele we have 4 strings. This is our first string. We call it the first string, or A. This is our second string, which we call the second string, or E. This is our third string, which we call C. This is our fourth string, which we call G, okay? Now, when we look at the tablature, we have the same representation of the strings and frets. So probably you already know what frets are, but let me remind you what frets are. So frets are these little compartments, these little blocks across the fretboard. So this we call the first fret, and the first fret nests or has 4 notes in it. Why 4? Because we have 4 strings, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is our first note over the first fret. So this is our second note, which is located on the first fret, second string. This is our third note, which is located on the third string, first fret. And this is our fourth note, which is located on the fourth string, first fret. So as you can see, we have a compilation of 4 notes here. If we move it 1 fret up, you have again 4 different notes. First note, second note, third note, and fourth note, okay? So when we look at tabs, let's have a look at it together. So we have 4 lines, and you guessed it right, every line represents a string. So if we look at the upper line, as we have 4 of them, so the upper line in front of you is the first string, it's the A note, okay? So it has a 0 on it. So what does the 0 mean? The 0 means play the open string of A. So pretty much an open string. Now let's move to the next note. The next note has a 0 on a second line. The second line represents your second string on the ukulele, or the E string. So let's play this note. Again, it's a 0. Now the third line, or the third string, has the number 1 on it. So that means the first fret. So you need to find your third string and place your finger on the first fret of your third string and play that note. Very good, and this note is called C sharp. Let's move on to our final string, the fourth string, or the fourth line. So on that string we have the 5th fret, number 5. So we need to place our finger on the 5th fret, 4th string, or the G string. So this is pretty much the basics, and this is how you read tabs. It's simply lines which represent strings and numbers on them which represent frets. Now the way to read tabs is from left to right, and sometimes we have multiple strings that we need to pluck, multiple notes. So in the following example, you need to pluck 2 strings at the same time. So we have a 0 on the first string and we have a 0 on the second string written on top of each other. So that means you need to pluck 2 strings together. So for now, I'm not really talking about the right hand technique. That's why I'm not giving you the indication of what fingers to use here. We're simply focusing on the tabs. So just pluck these two strings with any fingers you like. Now in the next example, we have three strings that we need to pluck. String 1, 2, and 3. Why is that? Because they're written on top of each other. They're vertically written. Now on the first string, instead of a 0, you need to press the 3rd fret. So let's press that 3rd fret and let's pluck the three strings all together. So for that, I'll be using probably my three fingers, index finger, middle finger, and ring finger. So that kind of makes sense. And I'm plucking the strings at the same time. So the next thing I want to talk with you about is rhythm, rhythmical notation. Well, unfortunately, a lot of tabs don't indicate in what rhythm you should be playing the song. And that's very unfortunate, because if you're not very familiar with the song you're playing, it's really hard to make sense of what rhythm you gotta be using for that one. However, in some cases, the rhythm is included, which I think is very helpful and very important. So when I write my tabs, I make sure to include the rhythmical notation in it. Unfortunately, rhythm is a very broad topic and I won't be able to cover it all today. So there are different types of bars and lengths of bars and different types of duration for the notes. The most common way of counting a bar is till 4, so what we call 4 quarters, and we count it as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and this we call a template. So the notes that we are about to play, so let's say the song that we are about to play, is going to be located on top of these numbers. Some of the notes will fall on the numbers, such as maybe the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and some of them will fall on the upbeat, which we call the ends. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let me give you an example and play Sweet Dreams again, but this time I'll be counting. So try to see what I mean by actually the notes falling on top of this beat, the rhythm, the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Check it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So there are a lot of different rhythms, and I highly suggest you guys to work on your rhythmical vocabulary, work on that feeling, because rhythm is the basis of everything. So let's do a little exercise together. Let's use our first open string, the 0, all right? And let's try to place it in the following way within the rhythm, within the bar. So as you can see, the 0 is falling on the 1, the end of the 1, the 2, the end of the 2, the 3, and then we skip the end of the 3, and then we play it again on 4 and. So sometimes tabs are written vertically, which is a very common representation of a chord. So in the following example, we see the AM chord, the A minor chord. And if we look at the tabs, we have the 2nd fret on the 4th string, 0 on the 3rd string, 0 on the 2nd string, and a 0 on the 1st string, and this is the AM. In some cases, we need to pluck the chord, and in some cases we need to strum the chord. So there are different symbols for that. So for a strum, there's usually an arrow. So, and we have two different types of strum. One type of strum is a very solid strum, which is a straight line. Now there is another type of strum which is a very broken strum, so it's where you pass all the strings and it creates a very nice effect. I'm using this one very often in my notations, and it sounds like this. The way to write it down is an arrow pointing towards the 1st string, and it's a wobbly one, right? So it's a wobbly arrow. So needless to say, when the arrow is pointing towards the 1st string, you strum towards the 1st string. However, sometimes we need to go up and strum upwards. So that means the arrow goes towards the 4th string. It goes up. So that's going to be an up motion. Sometimes the down strum and the up strum have a different type of symbol. It really depends on the type of notation you're looking at, but they all mean exactly the same thing. So if you're learning a song from tabs and you see a vertical chord shape, but there's no line, there's no strum next to it, that pretty much means plug the strings all together with these 4 fingers, thumb, index, middle, ring. Every finger is assigned to a string. So the next symbol that I want to teach you is the left hand fingering. So that pretty much shows you which finger you need to use in your left hand to press on a specific fret, specific string. So if we have a look at our AM chord, you see that I'm playing it with my second finger. So right next to that second fret on the fourth string, we see a little number 2. So that represents your second finger. That shows you use your second finger for that string, that fret. So it's a very useful thing to know, because in some cases when we're learning a song and we try to make our own idea about what fingers we should use, we don't always select the best choice. We don't always go for the right finger. So that's why when you're checking out an arrangement, a proper arrangement, it's always good to look at the fingers. What is the best finger for me to use to get from one chord to another, or one melody note to another melody note? So this is how it goes. So I highly recommend you guys, when you're studying my arrangements on Patreon, make sure to check out your left hand fingering. It can help you with your studying process. Alright guys, before we continue with learning more about tabs and different symbols, let's learn the very short riff of Sweet Dreams together. So the right hand technique is very simple. Pluck everything with your thumb. The rest of the fingers are leaning on the body of the ukulele. So now let's break it down and learn the first bar. So let's begin by plucking the open first string 2 times on beats 1 and 1 and. Then we take our index finger, the first finger, and we place it on the 7th fret on the first string. Then we open the finger and we play the 0 again. Then we go to the 8th fret with our second finger. Make sure to look at the notation. That's exactly how it's notated. There is a little number 2 next to the 8, right? That represents the finger. Then we open it back to the 0, and then we go back to the 7 with our index finger and back to that 0. Let's try to put it all together. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Very good. Let's have a look into the next bar, and it sounds like this. So let's break it down. We start with the second string, first fret, with your index finger, finger number 1. We play it 2 times. Then we go back to the first string, 3rd fret, with our ring finger or the 3rd finger. We slide it, we move it to the 5th fret on the first string, same finger, okay? Then we go to the second string, the open second string, we plug this one, and then we go to the index finger on the 2nd fret, 1st string, and then we go to the middle finger, 3rd fret, 1st string. Let's play the second bar together. 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now that we check the first bar and the second bar, let's put it together and play everything. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Very good. So now that we are becoming more comfortable with reading tabs and we even manage playing a song together, I want to continue the topic on symbols and how to read them and how to notate them. So a very important symbol to know is the symbol of repetition, and this is how it's notated. You have one from the left side and one from the right side, and there are 2 little dots within them. So that means repeat it 2 times. So if you'll need to repeat a certain section of the song more than twice, it will be indicated right next to the repetition sign, such as times 3, times 4, times 5, etc. So basically the riff of Sweet Dreams should be repeated 2 times. So we're going to keep those repetition signs there. Now I would like to talk with you about the metronome mark. The metronome mark is a number that you usually can find on the left upper corner of the score. So the metronome mark represents how fast the song should be played. So it's pretty much the counting of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but either sped up or slowed down. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so if you guys don't know what a metronome is this. So this was 100 BPMs. So 100 BPM means 100 beats per minute, 100 clicks per minute, or 100 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and per minute. So for example, 60 beats per minute is the speed of a second. So now this is 60. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if we put the metronome to the speed of 120, that means the click will be twice as fast than a second. So when I release my arrangements, I'm usually including the metronome sign right above, and that indicates on how fast the song should be played in its original speed. So when you're practicing the song, you should of course slow down the BPMs and start with more of a slow rhythm, I would say, maybe 60 BPMs, maybe even 50 BPMs. But the idea is after you're practicing the song in slower speeds, little by little you should be able to reach the speed that is marked in the score, the BPM sign. So now let's try to play the song Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics in the tempo or the speed of 60 BPMs. Check it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now I want to include the final part of the song, which is the AM chord. So the AM chord will be played right at the very end of the song. Check it out. 3 and 4 and. Good job, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to click the thumbs up button and to subscribe to my channel, because there's going to be a lot of cool videos coming up very soon. And if you're so much into ukulele, I'm welcoming you to check out my Patreon page, which is in the description. I have my amazing community there. I'm doing live weekly classes and monthly performances and teaching all kinds of arrangements. So make sure to check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.